Hello, everyone. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Joshua Hoecherl, who is the president and owner of Pinpoint Management. Joshua, thank you so much for joining today. An absolute pleasure. Firstly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Harris. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about leadership and business and all the things that I feel comfortable talking about.
Absolutely. Let's do that. Let's stick to that and try avoid maybe anything else. But the best place to start would probably be the very beginning, right? How the whole journey got started. Every destination, every journey has an amazing starting point. And it's really interesting to understand what ignites that, right? What got people into business, what people came from to be in the position they're in. So what does your journey look like?
Yeah, great questions. The beginning of my journey, I was coming right out of school and that initial part of life, and I thought, what can I do with ahead of me? Nobody wanted to hire me for the amount of money that I thought I was worth because I wasn't really worth that amount of money, even though I wanted to think I was, right? And I just decided, maybe I'll try telling other people what to do, which I loved to do. So I started a consulting firm, and I've just been in the consulting world for years and years and years. The business that we started was all about hustle, right? We were hustle innovators. We were just pushing as hard as we can. I remember a million different engagements where I'd sit down with potential clients and I'd say, listen, you know more about your business than I do. You know more about your industry than I do. But I can promise you one thing, nobody on your team will ever outwork me. I'm going to work harder than anybody else. And that brick wall that you keep running into, I will run into it faster and harder than anybody to break it down. And in fairness, I was in my 20s at the time and thought I had enough energy to sustain that and do that for the whole rest of my career. And it worked great to start. It's what people were looking for. And we outworked everybody else, and things went really, really good. And as the journey kind of progressed from there, I went through every different iteration of consulting and coaching, right? I've worked with brand new solopreneurs who, not even those people who have like an idea, like are still trying to formulate the idea. Like, when you walk into a room and like, I've got to build this machine and they don't even have the parts yet, right? So I've worked from that phase all the way to companies that are doing tens of millions of dollars and everything in between, just trying to find the best and most effective ways to help people. And I did the same thing every other coach and consultant has done over the years, where I developed the frameworks. I say, okay, this has worked with 80% of my clients. I'm going to apply it to everybody and just keep moving forward and moving forward. And we had a lot of success, and we saw a lot of great things, and things were amazing. And I've built and sold a number of different companies, been involved in other industries, with from an investment perspective, from a coaching perspective, from everything you can imagine. And then over the last little while, really post COVID, I've kind of noticed a little bit of a void, especially in the entrepreneurial founder, business owner, leader world, in that the need for the way that we're doing things and the way that we're approaching things is different. And out of that, we've developed some new ideas and some new concepts. And now we're at a point where we don't even talk about ourselves as consultants and coaches anymore. We talk about ourselves as empowerment designers. And empowerment design, not just a method, it's really a movement away from the dependency and back towards more like dignity in leadership and business owner. Our concept is, we're not going to hand you a fish, but we're not even going to teach you how to fish either, right? Like that whole thing, and teach a man to fish. That's great. That's awesome. And there's a lot of people that need that. I'd rather start at the very beginning. So we help people actually design the river, right? So before any of we get there, we design the river, because we believe that every founder, every leader deserves the tools and the skills that free them, not the frameworks that become cages for them.
Got it. Amazing. Now, looking at your journey, such an amazing journey you've been on, but is there a moment that kind of stands out as a highlight, something you're really proud of and stands out when you look back on? And on the flip side, is there a moment that you look back on and you're kind of grateful that you went through that challenging aspect or that challenging point of the journey, because it allowed you to become even better at what you do and even hungrier to kind of keep growing and scaling? What does that look like?
Absolutely. I'm going to flip the question for you, and I'm going to answer the one that was kind of the low light for me first, so that I can talk about how that led to the higher light for me. I have a almost 3-year-old grandson, and we're blessed. My wife and I, we have an opportunity for him to be in our home 2 to 3 days a week. My son and daughter-in-law are of that age group where they both work full-time jobs, and so we have that boy with us several times a week. And a little while ago, he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum disorder level 2 with some significant speech delays. And so there's some challenges there, different than the 5 children that I raised, vastly different. But he and I have been able to spend time together, and there's a connection there. And I was sitting in my home office one day on a really important call with a founder, and we were talking about leadership and engagement, and how to be more engaging as a leader and how to get the best out of his people. And I could just hear this soft knock at the door. And I knew who it was, right? I know it's this little boy who can't speak words, but the way he presents himself and the way that he looks to you speaks volumes, right? And I hear this knock and I hear this knock and I think, what do I do, right? Like I'm torn between these two things. And my wife is super talented, and I know that if he's knocking at the door, he's gotten away from her somehow and he needs something, right? And so I kind of put the meeting on pause on my Zoom call. I went and opened the door and he just looked at me. He didn't have to say anything, but he just spoke volumes of the fact that I need you, right? And it just was this moment where it switched for me, where I realized I was spending so much time in his life marginalizing him because of his diagnosis. And in turn, that means I'm probably marginalizing a lot of leaders that I'm working with because they've got this challenge. They've got cash flow issues. They've got leadership issues. They've got hiring issues. And I'm putting them in the box that's probably, from my perspective, it's what I've always known. And so I know this is who you are, but I'm limiting them right from the beginning. So from that, that's kind of where I started thinking, how do I do things differently? So fast forward a few months with me really trying to transform and change this. And I'm sitting in my office with a long-term client, and he sat down with a big sign. I thought, okay, what is it? Like, what's the next thing? As a consultant, you're always thinking, what's the next thing I'm going to hear from my client? Is it engagement's over? Is it this? Is it that? And I thought, okay, what is it this time? What is happening? And he just unloaded so much positivity from the perspective of, I took that story that you told me about your grandson, and I've spent a lot of time really looking at my leaders, and we revamped the way that we interact and communicate with them and the rhythm that we put into our business. And we've seen an increase in productivity. We've seen an increase in income. We've seen an increase in profitability. And it was just that light bulb moment where I thought every leader who's willing to take the risk to run their business, lead their business, start their business deserves the opportunity and the pathway to be the best version of themselves, right? And so I sat here with this guy and thought about my grandson, whose name is Joseph, and I thought, the future doesn't need louder gurus. We've got enough of those in the business world, right? It needs those quiet, stronger leaders who trust themselves. And it was that moment where I realized that's who I have to serve. That's who I have to find a way to unlock those seeds of greatness that are within them. Not because I've done something amazing, but because I can be a part of them doing something amazing.
Amazing. Very well said. Very well said.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
what does your day-to-day look like now? I know you're very busy, meetings up and down, and you're probably traveling, but maybe you can tell us a little bit of an insight into a typical day that looks like for yourself, obviously being the right at the very top, managing the team, the client, workload, project. What does a typical day look like for yourself?
Good question. So my day has greatly transformed as I've worked more and more in this empowerment design space that we're trying to design. And we've really built it to a place where my day consists of a couple of quick we call them rhythm cadences instead of meetings, because meetings always has a bad connotation, right? But we talk about, okay, we got to get into our rhythm, and we just have a couple of quick rhythm check-ins every morning with my team. We have a decent sized company that's growing all the time, but I really have 3 people that work specifically with me. And then they, of course, have people that they work with, right? But I do a check-in each morning with those people, make sure they have what they need from support from my perspective. And typically what that means is, do they have a question about overall vision and strategy? Do they have a question about the direction that their clients could potentially go or their employees could potentially go? And is there anything that they're missing from the other silos that I'm seeing from a more holistic level? And those are quick meetings, 5-10 minutes each one. And then they go and run their days, they run their departments, they do the things that they need to do. And of course, throughout the day, whether it's a marketing question or a development question or a design question, I get questions throughout the day, but we can usually answer them pretty quick, not by me giving an answer, but by me just asking another question that prompts the answer within themselves, right? And so the vast majority of my day is spent developing new content. I am writing so much right now. There's so much after 25 years of things that are coming out of, and really in fairness, it's 25 years of failure, right? I mean, that's where we get our biggest learning from. I don't have any success that isn't tied to some kind of failure before it, but I spend a lot of time creating content. I just, we're launching webinars. I have the opportunity several times a week to go on Instagram and put a live on Instagram. And it's just connecting and getting out there and sharing the message, because we believe that we're not about building followers. It's not what I'm looking to do. We're looking to build leaders who can walk away from us and still thrive, because to me, that's the true test of that empowerment. And coaching, as so many people know, has become a business model that creates a high level of emotional dependency. And for us, empowerment design is that exit door. And so I spend a lot of my time developing and refining how can we help people be the best versions of themselves not by our content, not by what we bring, but by allowing them to build their own pathway and their own frameworks that sustain them long term.
Awesome. Now, this is really interesting to talk about, and I'd love to get your thoughts. But what are the biggest market trends that you're currently seeing within the industry, or even across the different industries that you work with? The experience you have and the sort of knowledge and expertise varies. But if you have to summarize maybe one or two biggest trends or shifts that you're currently seeing, how do you think they're going to pan out over the next few months and years to come? And if we're advising business owners, founders, execs on how to navigate these constant changes, what advice would you give to that?
Question. And we see this a lot. This is accelerating right now. There's a lot of information out there in the coaching, consulting, and business growth world about how do you scale? How do you, because that's something that is out there that's talked about a lot. And that's the biggest thing that we're seeing, the biggest trend that we're seeing right now. From a consulting and coaching perspective, the numbers of people who are moving into that space, founders who are hiring coaches and consultants, it's trending down right now. It just is. The idea that a consultant can come in and redesign your company for you is true. And that's what I spent my entire career building and doing. But we're in a space in the world right now where I feel like a lot of leaders and founders aren't looking for that anymore. They're looking for a way to do that themselves, right? The thing that I'm seeing is we don't need more leaders out there who are trying to scale faster. Now, you go out there, my Instagram and Facebook feed, obviously, all of my feeds are just filled with do this to scale, do this to scale, do this to scale, do this to scale. And I got to be honest, I bought some of those just to see what's happening in the industry, to see what my competitors are doing. And I can pull a framework from 20 years ago that matches the framework that I just bought from someone yesterday. That's the exact same thing at its core, just with different buzzwords on top of it, right? Well, what worked 20 years ago in the business world doesn't necessarily work today. Yes, there are foundational principles that stay the same, but we have to evolve. We have to change. And my belief is we don't need more leaders that are trying to scale. We need leaders who are willing to design things differently and with just really deep respect and admiration for every coach and consultant out there who has paved the way, the ones who came before me, the ones that were contemporaries with me. We believe that the next chapter of leadership is not going to be built in those kinds of rooms. It's going to be built in communities that hand the microphone back to the people who are actually doing the work, right? Because most programs out there, they'll tell you what they think. Our goal is to help you remember how to trust what you already know and then build and accelerate from there.
Got it. Amazing. Now, another massive trend at the minute, right? And this is probably the massive trend before what we now know today. And that's power of social media, like social media, online presence, getting yourself out there where maybe 15, 20 years ago, you wouldn't really see a founder or a CEO out there doing videos, creating content. They'd probably be tucked away in their office and just pulling the strings around the business. Whereas now, if you don't see a founder or an exec on LinkedIn or social media, it's like, hang on a sec, do they even have a CEO? So how important has social media been to your success, and how have you used social media to kind of keep yourself growing, etc.? How would you advise somebody on the fence to go about social media, right? Is there some pitfalls that they need to be mindful of? And what is the overall benefit of social media in the current economic sort of situation with businesses looking to grow and scale? Yeah,
great insight. That it's interesting to see. I'm gonna say something that's gonna shock a lot of people. Social media is the wave of the future. No, I'm just kidding. We know that, right? We've known that for years. That's the reality. That's the direction that it's going. But you're right on all of those trends. You have to be front and center, not because you're the guru, right? But because there's a hunger and a need out there. And I think a lot of this has to do with what we as an entire global community and our individual communities and business communities went through with COVID, where all of a sudden the day-to-day touches that we had physically were totally ripped away from us, right? And now we're trying to transition back into this hybrid mode of how much do we do with technology, which I love technology. Like you and I are now able to have this conversation on different sides of the world,
Absolutely.
Which is profound. And who knows how this would have worked without something like COVID. So I'm not trying to take away from that, but there's the touch has been lost, right? Now, I don't think that we have to go back to where I've got to fly all over the place and put my hand in someone else's hand to create a relationship. We have this technology and we should use it. But at the end of the day, it's really about relationships that are grounded in humanity, right? So when you talk about how founders should be and what they can be doing on social media, man, just be real, be legitimate, be authentic, and be very intentional what we do, because that connection, those relationships, they're not soft. Man, I don't have any other word. They're sacred, right? And it shows up in the way that you build your business and the decisions that you decide to delegate and the trust that you give to the design of your business. And at the end of the day, people ask me all the time, I've got to put stuff on social media. What do I say? And typically what I tell them as you're not here, you can't show up on Instagram or Facebook to be right, because we live in a space where everyone's perspective of right is just a little bit different.
I
So if
agree.
you plant your ground in the idea of being right, you're going to cause challenges in that relationship. Just be real, right? And I'm not talking about you have to be in agreement with everybody's doing. Just be real about what you're saying and doing, because if you can sit in complexity with leaders and other business owners and help them create freedom from the inside out, that's how we design people to do well in their business. And it's how we translate the idea of empathy into real structure.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. Now, are there any exciting projects that are coming up for within the business? Is there anything you're working on that you're able to share?
Absolutely.
So people can be excited about that's coming out, that they can learn
Absolutely.
more and be more involved. Is that something you're happy to talk a little bit about?
I'm happy to share that. I have distilled the 25 plus years of probably we're getting close to 30 now. Wow, that makes me feel old. But the 25 plus years of leadership, of business ownership, of all those mistakes I talked about, all the success that I talked about, I've distilled all of that into a very robust, long catalog of experiences and content. I have several partners that I work with in different businesses and people that work for me within my business who have the same kind of experiences. We've taken all of the experience that we've put together and we've developed and created 3 very specific signature products. One product that is designed to build structure and foundation, that is really, here's the nuts and bolts of how SOPs work. Not how I create an SOP, but how you can create an SOP and then redesign that SOP as many times as you need to, because you don't need me to do that for you. Let's let you do that. So that's one framework. The second framework is, how do you unlock the leader within yourself? How do you really transform who you are? And so we developed over 100 different leadership traits and skills with some very simple training, 4 to 7 minutes with an assignment assigned to it to really make it stick. That's a signature product that we have that's called Wave Makers. The third product that we have is called our Entrepreneurial Leader System, which is about finding that in other people. How do you build leaders within your company? How do you build people that take ownership without having to give up equity, right? How do you create something where you can create CEOs at every level within your business that own their space, that know how to work within their guardrails and deliver on the vision, because now you have a shared vision between each other. So we have those 3 signature products that we sell to people. Then, because I love technology, we created an AI chatbot that is versed in all of those things, that sits on top of ChatGPT, that is versed in all of those things. So instead of asking ChatGPT questions where it goes and scrapes a couple different trendy websites or whatever's hot at the moment, or whatever's being talked about at the moment, and actually goes to our over 1,000 pages of content and 500 videos and pulls from that resource to say, based on what we know, you need to do this first and then this and then this. So you really have that AI co-leader in your pocket all the time. Bundle that all together into a membership site. So we have a recurring membership site that we're super excited about. It's called Leaders Evolution. It's about unlocking the leader inside of you to really go forward and to make huge differences. And, the reality is, whether you're in Leeds or whether you're in Los Angeles or whether you're, wherever you are, you deserve the tools that honor your humanity and help you build without losing yourself. And that's what Leaders Evolution designs for you. We just launched a webinar that teaches that concept, or about a 50-minute webinar that really goes in depth into some of those things and how you can implement those. And of course, it's a webinar, so there's a pitch in there to join my membership site, right? But people can get access to that at pinpointwebinars.com. And we're putting out new content all the time. I have a book that's being published here in the next couple of weeks and will be on the market. We actually have a total of 5. It's a 5-book series, and all 5 of those books will be out before the first quarter of 2026. And our goal is just to get as much content into people's hands, not so that we can become better known or a better guru, but so that each individual person can be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely. Now, what are some areas of the business that you're most proud of, right? And it could be from any area of maybe the marketing side, the sales side, the operations, the team that you've managed to build, or even the clients that you work with at the minute. What are the areas that you're most proud of? And what are some areas of the business you're having the most challenges and the most hurdles that you're looking to overcome, where if somebody's in a similar position, they might be able to relate and take some advice from it and really benefit them? What would you say on business side?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that we face in our business is absolutely one of the things that we see for everybody else. And that's getting our message out, right? Like showing why we're different, what we're trying to do different. What we're trying to do is very different than a lot of people out there. And so when we have to compete in the coaching and consulting space, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things. And I'm not I don't mean like negativity. There's benefits. Anybody can benefit from working with people and creating relationships with people. But our message is very different, but it kind of gets shifted into that same noise that everybody else is making. So that's the hardest thing for us is how do we differentiate? How do we create true leadership for ourselves to stand apart from the crowd? And the answer to that is the same tried and true answers that we've always seen, consistency, clarity in our message, and just building more relationships. And it's consistency in what we're trying to do. So that's kind of the space that we're in, that we're struggling with. Now, the flip side, where we're most proud of, where we see the most success, is actually the exact opposite side of that coin. And that's with the people, right? Every single person that we can connect with personally makes us better, and hopefully gives them an opportunity to be better. And that's how we welcome those relationships, right? Like, we want to be a part of the solution in everyone's life, not because we want the credit, but because we are truly engaged and inspired by seeing other people achieve their goals. And that's important to us. And, there have been, I have a client who just recently sold his business for a significant amount of money. He actually went on a regional podcast about talking about his business. And he asked me to go with him just because he was nervous. He'd never done it before. So I went with him and he recorded this podcast. And there was a time in my life, even just 5 years ago, where he went through this whole thing and he talked about his journey from his business being an offer that he's got from his business for $4 million. And now he got this $10 million offer, and how that happened and what he was able to do. And there was a time in my life where if I'd heard that conversation, I thought, yeah, I'm the one who helped you do that, right? But that's just not the case. Like, I was able to stand with him and I was able to walk with him and maybe help him see some things, but he put in the work, he put in the effort. And I sat down, I thought, this is it, right? Like, he's being celebrated for the leadership that he's developed within himself and within his team that created this offer for himself. And I just got to be a part of the journey, and I'm so grateful for that, right? Like, we're not here to add more noise to the market. We're here to build the clarity that, for me, creates a ripple effect. And that ripple effect happens through your teams and your companies, but also through your families, also through your communities. And if I just get to be a small part of that journey, that's payment enough for us. That's what we're looking for.
Amazing, amazing. So, Joshua, what does the future look like? I know that you've already achieved so much and there's still perhaps a long way to go, but what does the future look like? If we're looking at the next 6 to 12 months, are your goals metric based? Are they impact based? Like, what does the future look like? And if we go beyond that, right, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years and beyond, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind with the work that you're doing, and how do you want to be remembered for the impact you're making on the industry?
I love that question. Really, for us, our goals always start metric based, right? Because I still am a firm believer of what I can't measure, I can't improve, right? So I've got to find ways to be able to measure the things that I believe make an impact and a difference. And that's the part of business ownership that I think never changes. The way that shows up sometimes can change. And so that's our goals in the next 6 to 12 months, is how can we be more effective in helping people unlock the seeds of greatness within themselves. It's interesting to watch, because typically when I work with high level execs, we're working on their team, right? Like, and what I hear over and over again is they just don't got it. They just don't, there's so many limitations. They can't overcome this, can't overcome that. And it's an eye-opening moment for them when they realize, through the work that we do together, that their seeds of greatness, which I believe every person comes to this earth with seeds of greatness within them, their seeds of greatness are not buried beneath the limitations. Those seeds of greatness are actually buried in the limitations, right? So it's attacking those limitations and allowing those seeds to become something better. And they're planted in good ground. We just have to know how to nurture that and bring that forward. And so that's really our goal in the next 6 to 12 months, to take this Leaders Evolution membership site that we've created and get it in as many hands as we can possibly can. And the numbers that we talk about, I mean, I believe they're tens of thousands of people out there who can benefit from this greatly. So when we talk about long-term, I'd like to see so many people embracing the ideas of empowerment design and understanding that the great quote from Kennedy, that the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if we can help all the communities rise and become better, that helps the entire larger community become better. And those are our long-term goals. Yeah, they're going to be rooted in real metrics. We're going to track things like revenue and profitability and time and production. We'll track all of those things, but we're not going to track those things at the detriment of becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Got it. Now, what is the biggest piece of advice that you've ever received? Right. And it could be from family, could be a mentor, a business partner, a teacher, maybe even. What is the biggest piece of advice you've ever received, or the biggest lesson that you've had to learn the hard way that you're really glad you did? Because it's really shaped who you are. And perhaps somebody listening, if they really take that in, take action on, they can really see some real change and hopefully a better trajectory on the path they're on. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I ever got was I had a mentor who sat down with me one time, and I was frustrated because I wasn't getting. I mean, our company was growing and successful at the time, but I felt like we weren't getting the credit that we deserved. I don't know how else to say that. It's a little bit hard still for me to say that, but that's the reality. And he said to me, there are too many people in the world who are looking to build their success around someone else's voice. And you're trying to fill that void. You're trying to become that voice for someone else, right? What if you shifted? And what if your work was about helping them find their own way and then giving them a pathway to amplify that? Right. And that it was eye-opening to me. And it helped me realize that so many people in this world, and I believe we need to be more entrepreneurial in the business world, and we need to take more risks, and we need to do more things. And so many times we stop and we're looking for the next investor's money or the next consultant's ideas or the next coach's giving us permission. And if I can give a piece of advice to any young founder out there, anybody who's struggling with leadership or trying to get better, is don't chase the latest buzzword. Don't chase the latest framework. Don't chase the latest thing from the gurus who are out there. Not to discredit that, because there's value in what everybody does, but don't chase those buzzwords trying to find balance or peace within your own business. Engineer it instead, because those kind of things can be engineered, right? Whether it's through systems, whether it's through sovereignty, whether it's just through deeply human leadership, chase what's inside of you before you chase what's outside of you, right? And really refine that in a way that can make a difference in every circle that you have an influence in.
Amazing. And with that, Joshua, thank you so much. Massive, massive thank you for your time today, the level of detail and the conversations that you brought to the table. I'm sure everybody listening has really enjoyed themselves and found a lot of value. And I hope you've enjoyed the conversation as well and enjoyed your time. So once again, massive thank you. Is there any closing comments or final thoughts you might have for anybody listening, your team, clients, anybody that you work with? And how can people find you, hear more of you, and connect?
Absolutely. They can visit us all the time at PP, as in Pinpoint, ppmanagement.com. That webinar that I talked about is up and available at pinpointwebinars.com. Please come and visit us. And of course, all the social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're there at Pinpoint Management. We're trying to put out new, fresh content all the time. Don't give up. I think that's my biggest message to people. Being a leader, being a business owner, being a founder, it wasn't meant to be easy. There's no silver bullet out there. There's no pathway to freedom that you can slap something on top of something that's not working and hope that it gets you where you need to go. Be patient and trust yourself, and don't give up, because you started the business because there was something in you that told you to do it. Trust that. Trust yourself. Get the help that you need for sure, but don't ever discount what you already know. Just amplify it and grow it in a way that makes a difference for all of us.
Awesome. Joshua, once again, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. We'll catch everyone next time. Bye-bye.